I know some of you, and lovely to see some faces that I don't know as well. My name's Anna Hawken, and I lead a ministry called Parenting for Faith that's part of BRF Ministries. We do Messy Church as well, amongst other things, so you might know us from that. And we are going to be thinking in this time about top tips for adults accompanying children. So for shorthand, I'm just going to say parents and carers today, but know that that could be step parent, foster carer, grandparents, childminder, whoever it is. But if I say all of that every time, it gets a little bit long. But yeah, we're going to think about how they can be supporting and journeying alongside their children and young people. So I thought we could think about this as a bit like a family walk. Sorry, losing my voice already. So this is some of my family on a walk a couple of weeks ago, all different generations. The youngest here is 1, the oldest is 71. And we went on a walk up a steep hill. It rained a bit. And people went at different paces. It wasn't always the same people in the front and the same people at the back. Some people struggled with some bits, other people were running ahead. And you'll see the under 5s in this photo happen to both be mine in this picture, but they, the little ones, sometimes they need to be in a sling or in a buggy, but actually it's not very long, very soon on these sort of walks, these sort of adventures and trips. They can be the ones that are running ahead. They can be the ones pointing things out that you haven't seen. They might come to you if they've fallen over and hurt themselves, or to show you a particularly exciting stick, or that they've trodden in dog poo, whatever it might be. But you get the idea that in this sort of intergenerational space and with families together, we're all journeying. We're all hopefully going in the same direction towards God and growing in our discipleship. But it's not actually necessarily a case of the adults are the ones who have the most wisdom and have done it the longest, and therefore they're just teaching the younger ones. We're all just learning and growing together. And I think if we can keep that picture in mind when we're chatting about stuff today, that will help us. Excuse the child with 2 noses, by the way. That's what you get if you switch a panorama halfway through. So it's been mentioned a lot today, but just these ideas of kind of parents or the primary carers, they know their children best. They have the most time with them. They're the people who they trust most, that kind of attachment theory and the kind of relationships that Sarah was talking about. And I think many of us would agree with that, but do we really, really think about it when we're planning what we do in our church services or in our toddler groups or our Sunday groups? To think through, are we empowering and equipping the parents or primary carers always? Or are we accidentally, without meaning to, setting it up like we're the experts and they need to follow along and do what we're telling them? It's a bit like Sarah was talking about Bruna with the scaffolding there, how we scaffold for young children. Actually, we can do a bit of scaffolding for the parents and carers. So we can set things up so that they thrive, so that things work well for them. And I often show this picture of one size fits none, just a reminder that all children are different, all families are different. And so we want to recognise that those parents and carers are the experts in their children and take our lead from them and give them things that will work for them. If we try and, as you all know, if we try and put everyone in a sausage machine, it doesn't work very well. And on this, just that idea again, we've been talking about today, that most learning happens in the everyday normal bits of life. So we want to be always giving the parents and carers tools for the rest of life. Yes, we absolutely want them to have a great time at toddler group and church. We want to be having meaningful interactions and side-by-side experiences for them. But if we can be thinking, what tools are we giving them? How are we setting them up for the rest of the week and supporting them and encouraging them and equipping them for the other 167 hours? And let's be honest, lots of parents really do see all the hours in the night as well. Then that is really going to help and facilitate this idea of them being empowered and equipped and the experts in their own family. So at Parenting for Faith, we say that we give families a toolbox, and there's 5 different tools, and I'll reference those a little bit today. But don't worry if that's not your thing. Feel free to call it something else, do it something else. But we've got loads of free resources if they're helpful to you. So there's 5 tools that we use. Of 3 that I'm going to mention quite a bit today, so I will pull out. 1 is creating windows, so all about equipping those parents and carers to help their children to see and hear a little bit of their own relationship with God, make it more visible, make it more audible. Framing, Noah was doing excellent framing in that little video that we saw, asking questions, getting adults and children to interact, pointing out things, I wonder questions. We saw that in one of the videos as well. All those kind of things that help under fives and us as adults as well to see where God is in life, what that looks like, all those kind of things. And then the third, I'm pointing at these as if you can see, but I've no idea where I am on your screen. So never mind. Fourth one along, chat and catch, which is just one of the ways that we do prayer, that again, many of you may be familiar with. And if not, it's something you can try out, or you might have a way of doing prayer that already works super well in your sessions. So practically, how are we going to do that? So we've talked about, we've got a kind of picture of that walk and of empowering and equipping the parents. But how do we do it? We're going to look briefly at culture, and then I'm going to throw out a few ideas for worship and prayer and Bible reading, because I thought those are probably things that at least one of those, if not all of them, are going to happen in all your groups. So on the kind of culture, what do you do when you want to go to a new activity, or you move to a new area, or you're researching what to do? Where do you look first? I'm going to close this a sec so I can see the chat. We're going to be looking in, do make use of the chat, by the way. I love your kind of suggestions and ideas, that kind of thing. I don't know about you, but I Google it. That is the very first thing I do. So what is it looking like on your website? Not just the information about where they can park and if they can feed their baby and change them, and are toddlers even welcome, all that kind of thing. But something that indicates that they really are, under fives really are welcome in your space, and that there's lots of options, that it's set up for them, all those kind of things are really, really helpful. And then that when they're there, when they're in your church or your toddler group or that space, giving people loads of choices, not so much that it overwhelms them, but again, just going back to that one size doesn't fit all thing, just being aware that some children really, really struggle with loud, noisy spaces. Some get bored in very quiet spaces. Some won't be able to do snack time with everyone else because that doesn't work for them. You know, all things that you know, but just giving them choices and making that really clear before they even come, as well as when you're there. And set them up to succeed. There's nothing better as a parent carer than feeling like I'm not here to be judged, but these people have got my back. And that can be tiny things that seem really insignificant, but one of the things we do in my I run a family room for under fives in our church for people who need a separate space, and we have things like nappies in all sizes and wipes and lots of different snacks that cater for different dietary allergies and all those kind of things, just that we can say, hey, you forgot the nappy bag, don't worry, we've got you. We've got your back, we've got the right size, and we've got a snack that we know your child will like because I've got 10 different things in here. All those kind of things, so that the culture, the environment says, we're for you, we love you, we want you to succeed, we want you to have a really good time, and we want to set you up well. Sometimes when we say these sort of things, people go, but what if they go crazy? Like, if we give them too much freedom, they'll be running all over the bit where they shouldn't be, and they'll be going behind the screen, and it'll be carnage. So be clear about boundaries. It's fine to say, you can't go past this line because there are cables you might trip over, or, okay, for the next 2 minutes, we're going to be calm and quiet while we're chatting to God. If you don't want to do that, that's fine, but we're trying not to distract other people. So if you need to go outside, feel free to do that. So absolutely fine to give those boundaries, and actually that's really helpful. But if we can try and not always make those no's and negatives, show people their yes as well. A tool I really like to use here as well is called framing without shaming. And it's just hinting to people how to help their children and their under fives to interact with what's going on without making them feel bad about it. And again, I know that's subtle, but it's quite easy to accidentally make parents or carers feel like they're doing the wrong thing. But if we can give a couple of options of ways that people engage without saying they shouldn't be doing that or kind of pushing them, then I think that's helpful. and sharing stories of things that parents and families are doing, stories where they're doing stuff at home, stories where it's not the church or the toddler group leader that's the expert. I think that's really helpful. So, I said we'll chat about three things: prayer, worship, and Bible, because I figured they'd be in all your groups somehow. And I briefly wanted to introduce this idea of chat and catch, which is what we've kind of come to call prayer at Parenting for Faith. And the reason for using some different language and some different terminology is that sometimes people can feel like prayer needs to look a certain way, it needs to happen at certain times and places. And those things can be really powerful and really helpful. But God wants so much more of a conversation with us than just at meal times and bedtimes or in church services or in our toddler groups. So if we can set up the adults to kind of facilitate under fives praying throughout the day, chatting and catching with him, then that's really helpful. So chat suggests a little bit more informal maybe than prayer, that they can talk to God about anything, anytime, anywhere. Doesn't matter if they're on the potty or on the scooter or in the park or at preschool, to just encourage them to share whatever's important to them. I noted down some things. So I've got two under fives at the moment. One is 4 and one is 1. Things that matter to them that I've listed in the last 48 hours. Their special stick that they found on a walk, their favourite Paw Patrol character, the tower that they built, how they feel about going to nursery, the song that they love singing. And you can say to parents and carers, hey, when they've built a really great tower, you can say to them, why don't you tell God what you love about your tower, or show him? Or when they fall over and bump their knee, they can tell God about how much it hurts and show him. It doesn't need to look a certain way. And obviously adapt this, how it works with your tradition and your setting. But sometimes opening up that idea helps people of all ages to engage with it and to interact. And then the idea of catching as well is that God is communicating to us all the time. But when we say hearing from God, under fives in particular, who are very literal, sometimes expect an audible voice, an audible booming voice of God. And I don't know about you, but God communicates with me a lot, but it's almost never as an audible voice. It can be through all sorts of things. So yeah, we don't have time to go through those, but from kind of biblical examples, we can feel God with our skin. We can get pictures in our mind. He can give us dreams. So many examples of that in the Bible. Yes, we can physically see and hear things with our eyes and ears. He can communicate to us through our emotions, through how our heart and how we feel about things, through physically what's going on, through other people, through the Bible, obviously, all those kind of things. So kind of introducing that idea. And this isn't us dumbing it down for children. I can't tell you how often when we pray in this way, adults come up afterwards and say, wow, this really opened up prayer for me. It's helped me to engage in a way that I haven't before, or it's helped me to get out of a bit of a rut, or it's helped me to think about things differently. So I thought I'd just share briefly how I do this with a group of under fives, because you might be thinking, gosh, what on earth does that look like? So I pick a moment in the session that is quiet-ish, and it's never quiet. Of course, it's never quiet. But, it might be after the song or story or the God slot. It might be right when people come in, whenever it is. And I just share that we're going to have a bit of time of having a conversation with God, of chatting with him and catching with him. And so it's fine. You can choose whether or not you want to engage, but it helps other people if it's quiet for a little bit. So just for 2 minutes, if you can sit calmly, and again, encourage the adults to sit with their children. If you know there's children that are particularly going to struggle, you can sit with them. Sometimes the music is helpful as well. And remind them every single week what you're doing, or every session, because you might have new children each week, but also, as you all know, repetition is super, super important for under fives. So just tell them, I'm just going to give you some ideas of some things to chat to God about. You don't have to do it in your head. So much of our prayer as adults is in our head, but under fives often find that tricky. So they can whisper into their hands. They can, in a group setting, whispering is the one that works best, but sometimes they like to draw or make it out of Play-Doh, or whatever works. You will always get a child that shouts out, and that's absolutely fine. You say, "Oh, thanks for telling me." But actually, you can just chat to God about it. I don't need to hear right now. And you talk about how amazing it is that God can hear us all at once, that we can all talk to him at the same time and he can still hear us. So you throw out some of those things, tell God your favorite Paw Patrol character, tell him something that made you laugh this week, tell him what you're hoping you'll have for breakfast tomorrow, and just give them a moment. I often ask them to nod their heads or to give me a little thumbs up when they're done, just so I know they're still engaging. Uh, Children are better than adults at not falling asleep in prayer times, but I'm sure it can happen. So it's helpful to have a little bit of feedback. Um, and share that it's a bit boring if we just talk at someone and we don't hear back as well. So again, I might get them to ask a question, ask God something he loves about you, or ask God to show you a friend that he wants you to help this week. Again, don't wait very long, maybe 5-10 seconds, and you will be amazed. I know it feels a little bit scary, but it really is amazing how God speaks to under fives and how you can open that up in a toddler group or in a church setting. But as I was saying, we want this to be not just about the moment in our sessions, but equipping them in the week. So I always like to end by sharing, remember, you can do this wherever you are, even if you're in bed or you're walking to preschool or you're in the car, you can tell God what you had for breakfast and you can ask him what he wants you to notice today, or you can ask him his favorite color or whatever it might be. And it doesn't have to be verbal. So they can draw things, they can show him with their face, all those kind of things. Just another couple of ideas on prayer before we move on. One is to kind of really encourage adults to weave in conversational prayer into whatever they're doing. So point out things that interest them and that they see as they're playing out and about. And this one is really easy for you to model at a toddler group. So you can come alongside, the children who are playing with the bricks and say, look, show God what you've made. Why have you done that? That's interesting. Do you think that that little girl is worried about where she's going? Why don't you tell God something you're worried about? And you can either just do that and see if the parents pick it up, or you can mention, it's really great when they're praying to give them suggestions of things they can chat to God about or questions they can ask him. You can do that at home as well. Something else I like to do is to encourage parents to pray out loud in front of their kids when they're strapped in the buggy or strapped in the car when you're going somewhere. Just say, if you're praying in your head, if you're chatting to God about a meeting you've got later that day, or a friend who's ill, or asking him for advice on something, just every now and again do that out loud so that your under fives know that's what you're doing, because otherwise they have no idea what's going on in your head, and that really helps them to grow their own relationship with God. Yeah, and I've just put here, I have kind of in my head good, bad, happy, sad as prompts for under fives. When something good happens, something bad happens, something happy or something sad, those are really good opportunities to connect with God. So it can be falling over and bumping your knee, or a successful wee on the toilet, or something they made at nursery, whatever it might be. But that helps me to kind of think of some opportunities. So it might help you as well. The Bible. So something we can do with the Bible, framing, kind of explaining how it's important. So this struck me a while ago, that we read loads and loads of stories with our under fives, and lots of them are brilliant, but they are fiction. And how do our little people know what's the Bible and what isn't, and why that's important? So I'd really encourage you at your toddler group or at your church, if you don't already, every time you get a Bible out or a Bible storybook, you say, this is from the Bible. It's different to other stories. These are things that really, really happened a long time ago, or this is a story that Jesus told to help people understand something, or this is a letter from someone a long time ago to another church to help them understand how to live. Give them a little bit of that context, because otherwise, actually, what's the difference between a fairy tale or a story about a unicorn or whatever it might be? They're learning and growing and understanding about the world. And again, I think you'll find if you do that, that parents pick that up and start doing that at home as well. But you can say that. You can say at home, whenever you read a Bible story, or if you pick up a Bible story book at home, remember to ask the question, is this something that really happened, or is this just a fun made up story? Both are great, but it's good to know which one you're reading. very obvious, I'm sure all of you do, but having a little look through the story first to spot any tricky language. Does it say disciples? Well, that's not really a word we use outside of a church context or with under fives very much. So you might just need to say these were Jesus's friends, his people who are following him. Involve them in the story. Again, I'm sure you do that a lot, but if you can do it kind of in a relaxed, uncomplicated way that parents can replicate at home, that's really helpful. So it can be as simple as, Jesus rode in on a donkey. What noise does a donkey make? Let's all make a donkey noise. When you're reading stories at home, you can make the animal noises anytime you see an animal. And spotting, again, those emotions are quite helpful. So if there's someone in the story who's angry or sad or being let down or very excited, you can say, look, he's so excited. Show me your excited face. What does it look like? Show God your excited face. Why don't you tell God about something that really excites you or a time you were excited? Or why don't you ask God what excites him? So dropping those little bits in the story, and again, just mentioning when you're reading stories at home, anytime you see that someone's feeling something, why don't you tell God about a time that you felt like that? And kind of facilitating that conversation, making it, yes, they're taking in the Bible story and learning that, which is fantastic, but you're also facilitating that connection and that relationship with God. If you're like in a church group or a toddler group with lots of Christians where the parents are reading the Bible, you can encourage them to create windows into how and when they read their Bible. So most people, or lots of people nowadays, read a Bible on a phone, and it's really hard to tell if you're reading the Bible or if you're just on social media. So it can be as simple as saying, hey, if you're reading your Bible on your phone, show your child that that's what you're doing. Or tell them a verse that stood out to you, or write it on a post-it and stick it by the kettle, or save it on their lock screen and on your lock screen and tell them what the words mean. Or dust off your actual physical Bible, even if that's not the way that you'd normally read it, and leave it out. Leave it out and let them flick through the pages. And show them that it's like their Bible or their Bible stories, and make that link and that kind of connection that they're similar. And really just an encouragement too to support parents and carers to read a really broad mix of Bible stories. Can be tempting to kind of stick to the classics that we know well. But if we're not careful, children can get a little bit of a warped, a bit of an unbalanced view of who God is and which of those stories are important. So it's really helpful to go broad. And I know loads of you have like lending libraries or are happy for people every now and again do a book swap or a Bible swap, that kind of thing. Because that really helps families to have access to Bible stories and to go a little bit broader and not always read the same ones. Just do time check. Yeah, no, we're fine. So the other kind of area I was thinking about was worship. And how we facilitate that. Obviously, our whole lives are worship, but I'm thinking particularly in this context about music. That's come up lots of times today, that music's something that under fives really engage with and works really well for them. So I think if we can facilitate that, that's really, really helpful. This idea of the hint drops, kind of what I was talking earlier about, that framing without shaming. And we very often in churches or toddler groups, we end up giving an instruction to parents. We tell them what to do, which is helpful in helping them know what to do, but can actually feel a little bit like they're getting told off, or if they're not doing that, they're doing their wrong thing, or if their child doesn't want to engage in that way, then it can make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. So this is just a way of giving parents a clue of something they could do, or some options of some things that they could do, and kind of nudging them to use the skills that they already have as a parent and they use all the time when they're helping their kid put their shoes on and cross the road and make dinner and all those kind of things. But people sometimes forget to use in a spiritual context, but also communicating that it's okay if they don't want to do that. So let me give you some, I realize that's a bit broad. So let me give you some really practical examples. Things like, say you're doing a special service, it's Remembrance Day, or you've got another group in, something like that. And so it looks a bit different to normal, which can be tricky. A visual timetable is really helpful here. If you've got capacity in a place, you can put that up. But you might want to say something like, okay, today we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're going to be doing something a bit new. So if you're with someone who might need a bit of help following along, feel free to whisper into their ear what's happening. And that just gives permission, and it gives an idea to parents who might not have already thought of it. Hey, tell your under five why the brownies are here today, or why there are poppies, or whatever it might be. And just kind of encourages them to do that walking alongside their under five. What about if children are struggling to engage with worship because they can't see? How many times do our poor small people see the back of their legs or their bottoms or their backs instead of what's going on? So you could just say something really simple like, so for everyone here today, including families, if you can't see the words very well where you are, feel free to move out. We've got some space at the front, we've got some space at the sides. Anyone's really welcome to use that space. Or if you're not blocking anyone's view, feel free to lift your child up or put them on your shoulders. And again, some people do that naturally. Many parents and carers kind of figure that out by themselves, but it's just a way of supporting them, scaffolding them, encouraging them to know those options are available, but without making them feel rubbish, if that makes sense. Yeah, familiarity is super important. I loved in that example, we were talking about having quite a small number of songs. And I know many of you do that in your toddler groups. But one thing that can make a really big difference is having a playlist. So just set it up on Spotify, YouTube, whatever it might be, and send that out to families and say, hey, you could play this at home. You know, why don't you play this in the car or play it before bath time or whatever it might be? Again, give them some options. It will look different in every family. But that really helps. If you can't read the words, then if you know the song, if you've heard it at home, then that really helps them to engage. And it also sets up, hey, playing worship music or singing along to songs is something that happens at home as well as a toddler group or at church. Lots of options of ways to engage. We've talked about that, and particularly if you can't read the words. Things like whisper to them what's going on for you, give them certain words to look out for or join in with. Cuddle close. You could do signing, dancing, actions, or just watch what's going on for other people. Yes, we want them to engage, but sometimes it's really powerful to say to children, look at all the different ways that people are worshipping God and connecting with him. Some people are sitting quietly with their eyes closed. Some people are shouting out loud. Some people are really singing. Some people are moving. Some people aren't. I wonder what you'd like to do. And it just sort of gives them some options to do that. And yeah, I think we've talked about that, you know, in the playlist, just saying you might not like all of these songs. So feel free to add ones that you like, and especially ones you like as an adult. Share the songs that you like. If these kids' songs are driving you nuts, you don't have to just listen to kids' songs. Share why you like songs that are written for adults and how that works for you. Christian radio can be really good as well for introducing different songs and different ideas and just kind of broadening people's view. So that has been a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I'm going to pause in a sec just to hear any ideas from you, any questions, I'd love to learn from what this looks like in your context. But if you would like to know a little bit more, we've got a book that is specifically written for parents and carers of under fives, and it doesn't assume that they're keen, signed-up Christians already. It's deliberately written to be very relatable for people new to faith or just exploring faith. And so lots of people give this as like a gift at infant baptisms, dedications, Thanksgivings, that kind of thing, or when they do it in a toddler group. And it goes along with a little course that we have of some bite-sized videos that sometimes people run as part of a toddler group or a Sunday session, and sometimes they do it as something different. So those videos, there's 5 of them, there's kind of 5 to 10 minutes, there's little discussion guides that go with them. And yeah, we can support you to use those. That's all free, so do feel free to make use to it if it's helpful. I mentioned it's got kind of playlists, and then we have 3 videos as well, that people can use for families that come along to church and want to have their baby or their toddler baptized or dedicated or a Thanksgiving service, but aren't familiar with church at all. So Words talks about the power of words and moves into talking about prayer, but how important it is what we speak over children and what we speak around them. Music talks about how children engage with music and how much they love it and ways that we can worship. And the community one is just saying, hey, parenting is hard and you need people around you to support you and encourage you. Church would like to be that for you. If you don't already come here or you don't already feel part of this family, we'd love to welcome you. And here's just a little bit of what it looks like to bring a toddler or a baby to church. Please feel very welcome to do that, which is what we were talking about at the beginning. So yes, I would say that has been quite a whistle-stop tour, but that has left us a little bit of time for anyone just to either share in the chat or unmute yourself and ask a question or share what any of this looks like where you are. Because I know you're in such different contexts. I'd love to hear from you and learn from you and kind of learn from each other.
Thanks so much, Anna. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You put it up.
I know. No, that was really fascinating. And anybody in the group, if you've got a question to ask Anna, please feel free to do so. There was a question in the chat, and quite a few people have been making a comment, Anna, and it was about a recommendation of a toddler Bible to use in a toddler group, that children could read along with you. I know there's always a comment about having big books. I know people are always asking me for big books.
Yes.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I know people often end up, I know quite a few people who've ended up making their own for precisely that reason, that it's really hard to do it, or projecting it large on a screen, holding a smaller bit, but projecting it large on the screen behind them. I can see Rachel's mentioned the Jesus Storybook Bible. That is my personal favourite, I have to say, but that's not an official Parenting for Faith recommendation. I do think it depends on what the story is. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes if you know the story for the week, what you're going for, it is worth having 3 or 4 and reading them in different Bibles, because sometimes the emphasis is quite different, and there's different things that I would resonate with and some less so, that you want to pull out. So I think that can be quite helpful, and to show them that there's a range. But yeah, I don't actually have a favourite, but I don't know if other than after the Jesus Storybook Bible. But Rachel's recommended quite a few there, and I don't know if other people have ones as well.
I can just say from a publisher point of view, I've had lots of conversations with the Bible Society about making big toddler group Bibles. Basically, it's cost prohibitive because you want more than one page and illustration per story, and they're just so expensive to print big.
Yeah.
Even if they did make them, it would cost like £200, and then no toddler group would buy them.
Yeah.
So you are probably best to do some sort of make your own scenario. Roots, our resources, has a full page illustration and the story. Again, that's the best we can do, but there's only one illustration. So if you have like things like Godly Play, flannel graph, all of that kind of old school stuff, or Godly Play is not that old school, but like you don't always have to have a book. And so do experiment with puppets, with sand trays, that kind of thing to show it, and then show them in their Bible where it is, so that they know it's from the. But again, having a big book is hard. If ever the Bible Society and us get together and make one, we'll let you know. But we need some rich person to subsidise it for toddler groups, so it's not
massively subsidise it. Yeah.
Just to print anything that scale. And then you'd want not just one book, you'd want like so many Bible stories. So it'd be like a whole compendium of books, and it would cost so much. So that's why there isn't one.
But there are some really creative ideas in the chat actually about like what's in the box exploration. Yeah, so that's often how I do it. Is we have a bag, we have like a rhyme that we say every week, and there's 3 things in the bag. All things you guys will have tried out, but little bits of costumes or props, and maybe not always. There doesn't always have to be a book. But even if you're just retelling the story, and you don't have capacity to put it on a screen or something, I would really encourage you to get out a physical Bible, whether it's an adult one or a children's Bible, and say, this story is from the Bible. It really, really happened a long time ago, or whatever it might be, that kind of framing I was talking about. Because otherwise you could just be making stuff up, which is lovely, but it's not. It's really helpful for them to understand where that's coming from and where it fits in, and that the Bible's all about how God helps us do life and where he is in the big picture and those kind of things. Yeah,
Great. There's some fantastic things coming there. Has anybody else got a question about something else that Anna talked about, or anything else about supporting parents with their under five? So have you got any particular issues in your context that you'd like to pick Anna's brain? I love it, the fact, Anna, you've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, that you're really speaking from experience, which is great. Has anybody got a question to ask Anna on anything she's been saying? You must have covered it all, Anna. That's amazing.
I think it's that descent into lunch, isn't it? Yes. Oh, can I just pick up Judy's
Oh,
made a really, really good point about grandparents? And I didn't mention this specifically because I wasn't sure if it was in the brief, but I bet you guys all have grandparents in your toddler groups and in your churches who are brilliant. And we've been working the last couple of years on really giving those grandparents loads of confidence and tools to they are the most wonderful resource, whether they're doing childcare for their grandchildren and they're the ones bringing them along to the toddler group or the church, or whether they're kind of praying for them and supporting them from afar. We've really found that where you equip grandparents, makes a really big difference. So a couple of very quick things you could do. We've got lots of grandparenting groups running where they meet up once a month, typically, some of them once a week. And they do a bit from the Grandparenting for Faith course or Grandparenting for Faith book and pray for all their grandchildren individually by name, having some amazing stories coming out of that. Or having a little grandparent section, like a kind of a grandparent meetup after your toddler group, or really giving that message, that culture and that messaging from churches. Grandparents, you're so important. We love what you've got to say. And grandparent generation, please share your stories. Please use this with your grandchildren, whether they're teenagers or toddlers, and whether they're far away or near. And we do look in the Grandparenting for Faith book and course about, okay, but what if you're a grandparent, but your children aren't Christians, or are quite anti, or they live very far away, or all those kind of things, and how you can still engage through video calls and WhatsApp and, all sorts of different things. But we know those are quite common things. But yeah, please, please, please don't forget about your grandparents. They're amazing.
Thanks, Anna. I was just I put that in because I'm working on writing a resource just now for grandparents that's
Brilliant.
practical things, and so it's once a month. So it's 12 different cards that there's a Bible story, a way to pray, and an activity to do, and to engage with our grandparents. We did a bit of research with some grandparents in the around the URC folk about that, and that's what they wanted. And they didn't want a digital resource; they wanted a physical resource. They said, if it's something that's there for us, we can pick up and do, that's quick and easy, then that was the kind of response that we came back. So there is a big gap, I think.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And we're really seeing that taking off, and people who do it as kind of a book club type setup. It's really nice, and in kind of daytime home groups and that sort of thing.
That's great. Thank you. I'm aware we've only got a couple more minutes. Rachel Barclay, did you want to ask a question? I saw you unmute yourself.
Yeah, it was just basically I'm finding in my toddler group that getting the parents to actually engage in the story time and song time, because they like to chat, and it's lovely that they're able to support each other and chat, but actually at that point it would be really helpful to try and get them to join in with the story time, because otherwise, like, they're talking over me and
Yeah.
the children are so young that actually are they getting anything from it? So yeah, I do find that quite difficult. Has anyone got any tips?
You are definitely not alone. I think everyone here will be nodding, being like, yeah, no, that scenario. There's no magic fix, but one thing I would say is if the framing of that time is here's a story for the children, most people in that context assume, oh, good, the children are occupied for a bit, someone's reading them a book, so I can finish off my chat. And if you can really reinforce, and in the framing of that, of we're going to have some time with story together, children, go and find your grown up. We're going to need your grown up, like sit on the, you might want to sit on their lap or whisper to them what you think with that. Adult, ask your child this, child, ask your adult that, hold hands together and do this thing, and try and really engage the adults in that. That can help with them just going, oh, hang on a sec, this is something I'm supposed to be doing with my kid, not not switching off. But I know it is tricky. Yeah, people are talking about using music to bring the volume down as well. Yeah, or like something that signals you're sitting in a different area, or there's a song and then that bit happens. All the old tricks, but
Yeah, I think Anna, I was going to say you've got about 15 seconds. I remember hearing about one group where they have a little bell that they ring, and that's a real signifier to people say, right, be quiet now, listen to what's being said. But thank you so much, Anna, for sharing a deep dive.